Boom. What up, ladies and gentlemen? He cracked the code to picking racehorse champions, and it's more data science than luck. Let's get this show started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Boss. All right, ladies and gentlemen, he's an Ivy League investor who turned the racetrack into Wall Street. With a background in law, finance, and neuroscience, he's using high-tech tools to pick winning horses like stocks. And he's got the stats to back it up. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Jeffrey Seder.
Quite an introduction.
Welcome to the show.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that was quite an introduction. But it's true that we have a better track record than any of our competitors by a lot because we don't do it the way they do it. And we got there. It was easy. It only took 35 years and several $1 million of private research with major universities and veterinarians and biomechanists and all kinds of stuff.
Well, tell me about it. How did you get into this stuff? Like, how does one go from doing the real estate investing stuff to racehorses? Did they come hand in hand? Did you grow up with them? Give me a little bit of background.
No, and that's why I had to do it the way I did with science. And I'm an industry disruptor. I'm completely done, changed the way it's done. And most people are scared of us, except our track record, which is verifiable by third parties and is on our website, is real. We've had multiple world champions. We've had, most people get one or two of the major races won in their lifetime. We've had 50 of those horses, and we bought them at below auction prices. You'll see that most of the auctions now, the top horses are going for millions of bucks each. And our average price was $155,000 to take a new guy who came into the industry from the beginning all the way to the leading stable in the United States, the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years. And a profit, 99.9% of people in horse racing lose money, mostly because they don't care. And they're doing it the same way it's always been done. I had no contacts. I was too big to be a jockey, and I didn't have money. But I had degrees with honors from Harvard in law and business, and I hooked up with biomechanists and engineers and veterinarians because I was pretty sure when I studied horse racing for a business and law degree terminal, treatise, that it was mostly being done the way it had been done for 300 years with eyeball and intuition, and that modern business and biomechanics. I was one of the early starters as a young lawyer with the Olympic Sports Medicine Committee when it first started, way back in 1976. So I got a good look at what could be done, and I decided I would do it with racehorses. So it really started one day when I was 26, and I went for a ride one day in May at a rental stable. It was a blind date. I fell in love with a horse, not the girl. I became obsessed. And then I did my thesis on racing in the Massachusetts and in the economics and business and law. And then I started to create, and in the early years, I had these day jobs because the data didn't exist on racehorses. It existed on ponies and labs and that kind of shit. And one of the things I learned in the Olympic sports medicine movement was elite athletes are as different from normal in a lot of the data as injured and sick is from normal. So you have to have the data on what it is you're looking for. It didn't exist in racehorses, and the equipment to get it, the data didn't exist. I had to and got patents along the way and spun off new medical devices. One of them got new medical device of the year in Europe in 1986, came out of for humans. And it came out of our developing equipment so we could get the data we needed on racehorses. So,
as you're describing that, it reminds me of the movie Moneyball. Like, there's a whole different approach to what you're doing here than meets the eyes. What What is this something like a data that I can use as someone who goes and bets on racehorses directly,
Some of the
or
big,
is this for like breeding
yeah,
side? Like, how
some
are
of the
you doing
biggest
it?
gamblers work with me on about betting. One of the leading guys in the industry, a handicapper, the Wizard. He's on Daily Racing Form, and you can buy his stuff. It's called the Wizard. And Michael Kipnis, and he's a good friend, and he's a guy that I work with. So yes, it's just looking at these horses as athletes and what they're capable of and what makes them the good different as an athlete. And it took us a long time, but we've got massive databases now of many thousands of horses over 30 years. And we take slow motion pictures and take it apart in the mechanics. We discovered and patented that the heart, the thickness of the walls and the size of the chambers in the top racehorses is much different, even when they're babies, than the average racehorse. And it's not subtle. I mean, it's like 50% bigger or more. And it correlates and other organs, and correlates directly. So if you spend $1 million because the top multi-million-dollar stallion, you pay $500,000 to breed your $2 million mare, your chance of getting a top racehorse is maybe 1%, 2%, whereas we do like 10 times that, more than that. So, and we don't look at the pedigree until we're figuring out how much to pay for the horse and how much we can sell it for when it's successful. So it's really was a close-knit industry that was totally fragmented, and that was convinced that they knew how to do it without technology. Now all the technology, the AI and everything is focused on pedigree, which is barking up the wrong tree. It's not that it's useless. It's just that it's nowhere near as powerful as the other stuff.
So, have you felt like adding the technology aspect to it is making it more competitive? You're able to kind of buy things out or know which horses are going to do so much better. Like it's almost like are you like allowed to? I'm gonna be honest. I've never been to a racetrack,
the reason they allow us to do these
yeah.
tests is because we're a big buyer at auction now. We've worked with some of the biggest stables in the country and the most successful ones, and they know we're not just tire kickers. And if they want us to buy that horse, they got to let us do the test. But everything had to be non-invasive. In 40 years, we have never had an accident because we have top horsemen that handle the horses, not a lot of geeks. In fact, after 20 years, our first 15 years, what really changed made us successful was you started hiring top trainers and top people who had been in the horse business for a lifetime in the traditional way. And so they knew everything that the last 300 years had put into the industry. And discovered, they knew all that. I'm not just some guy who doesn't know how to spell horse. I had real horsemen. My partner, Patty Miller, is now internationally known because she was a jockey. She was a successful trainer, and now she works with me. And I don't do anything with technology until after she looks at the horse. So I look at the altimeter and she looks out the window to see if we're off the ground. So I start with the traditional horsemanship and successful people in racing, the best advice and the best expertise that they have. And then I layer on top of that. I'm not instead of it. So they can buy, all these horses with the best pedigrees, and they're going to have it, they're really lucky, 5% or something. But I can get 4 times that by putting the technology on top of that. And I see all the time horses sell for top prices because they got top pedigrees and they look great. And they fail our tests. They've got tiny hearts, or they've got stuff in the way they move that's going to mean they will get hurt early. So not only can we help people buy, but we can help people avoid the bad ones. And with some of the best clients, they love horses and horse racing, but for guys who just love professional sports and action and betting, it would cost you $2 billion to get an NFL team or an NBA team. You can do the same in racing for like $20 million and have the same social milieu and the group and the action and a fraction of the price. And we've proven it, and we have the data and the independent records to prove. And we've made money for these big stables. And one of the reasons I'm talking on this podcast is because one of the guys. Some of the older clients are, they're like almost 90 and they're getting out. They're dead, or they're dead, and their kids don't want to do it. So I could work with some new people now, and I'd love to do that. somebody who wants to buy a professional team, if the horse racing, which is, I mean, the Kentucky Derby's this week.
Yeah.
It's a gas. It really is.
We have the Del Mar racetrack here in San Diego, and every year there's a major event, all the big hats that they end up wearing. Like it's a big thing for an entire season. There's a whole community around horse racing. We got communities that have equestrian ranches built in because of the popularity. There's a lot of, I know there's a lot of traction there. So when you're looking for people, like, who's your ideal client? What do they look like? Someone who might be interested in buying up a team like that.
My ideal client is a guy who probably just sold his business. He's been around, he's enjoyed the racetrack, and he can afford to field a professional team, and he wants to get in, but he is like, all the vultures will descend on him. And they talk all the jargon, and they tell him, they bought all these horses, which usually they didn't, or they had a small piece in it in the process, and they take complete credit, or they had 2 or 3 great horses in the last 20 years, and that's supposed to be enough we have to do it every year. So I try to tell them, I show them, and they talk to them, and I try to say, listen, if you want somebody who's honest and who's actually proven that you can do it, and that will keep you out, and it knows the industry, so I can steer you away from all and it's, it is like a Damon Runyon novel or play. I mean, it's just, there's so many bad actors in the industry, and they're so slick. So I can steer them away from all that. Then that's my guy, because the guys are already in it. They've already got a click, and they don't really care about the money. So if you tell them I can do the same thing for you at a fraction of the price or better, they don't care. They've got all their buddies they do it with, and they don't want to change. They like being part of the inner circles of traditional racing. So if want to be one of the leading stables and everybody chasing you.
Yeah. So if you're one of those people that are out there, let's say you find one that's interested, what's that responsibility like? Is it somebody that just wants to dive in and become like, this is going to be their new hobby, something they're going to do, or is this like an investment that's kind of hands off? What kind of interaction is involved?
Any level they want. If they want to work with me, I'll teach them everything I know. I'll put them right in there with me doing it, and they can, and they'll every piece of it they can be a part of. Or if they don't want to do that, they can go to the races and collect the trophies and the money and the press coverage and the parties. We can help them with that too. Anything in between. That's why I do it. I do it for the horses. I live on a horse farm. I love animals. And by the way, our horses, you see all the bad press about horses getting hurt or die, breaking down. Well, that doesn't happen to us. Why? Because we know why it happens and we avoid those horses. But there's a lot of tech behind that. So
let me ask you, you have data that goes on top of pedigree itself. You talked about how you're still using knowledgeable people on the upfront, but then you add the tech behind it to kind of substantiate those numbers. But how much does pedigree really matter versus some of those physical traits and the data that you have? Is it still important, or is it just one of those kind of extra
most
factors?
people in the industry will tell you that it's critical, and I'll say it's not. The database that they base their findings on is totally bollocks, because over the years, the drugs, 10, 15 years ago, they were using cocaine, for God's sakes, and all kinds of elephant tranquilizer, all kinds of stuff to kill pain. And then there's trainers that are professionals with that stuff. And then there's the really good vets are different than the average vets. And the really good trainers are different. And the top pedigree horses, the most expensive horses with the biggest owners, went to the top vets and the top trainers. And, so there's so many variables involved, and they're just looking at the results and saying it all came from the pedigree. And it didn't. That's a lousy database. Now, I'm not saying it's not. It is important if you want to know what to pay for the horse and what you can sell the horse for. And it's not silly. It's just not as powerful as these other things. For example, pedigree is creating a probability of what it is the offspring will be. And so I'd rather look at the offspring. If the probability is 10%, 15%, it's going to be X. Why do I care? I'll look at it and see if it's got the big heart, if it's got the clean, safe stride, if it's got the powerful biomechanics that they're going to make it or not. And I don't care. And if it does, it has a great pedigree and it's got a teeny weeny heart, I don't care. I'm not buying it. And I've seen that all the time. Recently one went for like 2 million. It ran its first race and everybody, was bet down to 1 to 2. And so I bet on everything else in the race and made a lot of money. I knew it couldn't go that distance and it didn't. So there you have it. The Kentucky Derby, for example, here's another one of our technologies. When you see a horse that's passing everybody in the stretch, usually they're not running faster than the other horses. They're slowing down less than the other horses. In American racing on dirt, when they come out of the gate, from then on, they slow down. And the slow down fits a logarithmic fatigue curve that you can map, and it's specific to that horse. So you can then extrapolate that to see what their time would be at longer distances. This was developed for swimmers in the U.S. Olympic Committee, and I've adapted it to horses over many years. So the Kentucky Derby, for example, is 1.25 miles. No, none of the horses in that race have gone 1.25 miles yet. So they're all going all the handicapping, all that crap. I look at everything they ran in, and I get their logarithmic fatigue curve, and then I extrapolate it out to 1.25 miles, and I find out who can do it. And it's almost always not you who expect, or there's 2 or 3 long shots that have a real chance. And every year I nail that. And this year's no exception. This year, my top picks are all 4 horses are 12 to 1, and the other 3 are 30 to 1 or 20 to 1. And they have killer fatigue curves, which means that extra 1/8 of a mile, which is, how far is that? That's 660 feet, is a big deal.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it's a big deal, but they don't, they still think, oh yeah, he was passing everybody. He was pouring it on. He's just slowing down less than the others.
But even that concept is something that we don't all know.
Let me just get to them. They're not really come from behind horses. They're just horses that don't slow down as much. So in the beginning, they outrun them, and then everybody else tires out, and they don't tire, and then they win.
See, I didn't know. No, it's all good. No, I can see the passion and excitement you got in your voice. I know that kind of it pumps me up, to be honest, because I learned something right now. Like I didn't know when I'm watching the racetrack that I'm always thinking like a human. You're always trying to get that extra sprint at the last minute, but it's a horse. You're absolutely right. It's not sprinting more at the end. They're slowing down at different rates, and then you can mathematically extrapolate that. I love that.
Well, it works, and I can prove it. And if you want, I'll send you a lot of data about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you'd be a handy person to have at the racetrack, that's for sure. Let me ask you. You also talked about new buyers coming in, getting.
I love sports.
Yeah, I can tell. No, you talked about earlier when people get into this space that there's swindlers, there's things that happen that it's kind of tough to get into, and that's why you want to be able to know somebody, and that's a good to be going into this service with someone like you. What's one of the biggest myths that horse racing investors have, maybe their first time buyers, that they tend to fall for very often?
One of the biggest myths is if they buy the most expensive horses, they'll get the best horses. It's not true. It's just not true.
It's brutal. They're just paying, again, we're going back to that pedigree thing, right? They're paying for pedigree and they don't understand the basics.
For $1 million, it's got a good pedigree. It usually has demonstrated it can run fast, and it'll be correctly conformed usually. But what they don't see is the super slow motion film when it's running. So it can be completely beautifully put together. And when it's running, it can, it does things that are guaranteed it's going to get hurt early, or that it's inefficient. It's using too much energy. And at these sales where these horses go for $1 million plus, they run them 1/8 of a mile. And so some of these horses, they do blistering times for 1/8 of a mile. And my comment is, it's not how fast they go, it's how they go fast. So I don't care if they're the fastest workout, and they pay monstrous for the fastest workout at the auction. And I'm thinking, it's fucking idiotic. It's not, the races are a mile or 6 furlongs. They're not 1/8 of a mile. So if you buy $1 million, you win the first half of the race. Terrific. That's not what you want. We bought, for example, the sprint champion, the world sprint champion, we bought for a client as an unraced 2-year-old. It had one of the slowest times at that auction workouts, one of the slowest times, 11 and 1 second for 1/8 mile. And it became the world sprint champion. And how did I know that? It was because I know that at 11 and 1, which by the way is also faster than it was going to have to run in any race, that 11 and 1, the way it did it was effortless, just effortless. And I thought, hot damn, it never has to run faster than that in a race. And if you run 11 and 1 for every eighth for a mile, you'll set world records. So we grabbed that horse, and it became the sprint champion. And the most expensive horses at that auction all went not 11 and 1 seconds. They went in 10 seconds flat or 9 and 4/5 seconds, and that blah blah blah. And I thought, so what? They can win the first half of the race.
But again, the slow motion data, that analysis, you did probably taking a look at its heart and all that stuff. You're going to be able to see a lot more and understand a lot more than other people are going to be able to see. So you'll be able to buy up that horse early on.
And it shows things. Some of these things are very obvious. You don't have to be an expert. All you need is the tool. It's only been around 50 years, slow motion. I was doing it with cameras and rushing the film the night before the auction to the NFL labs in Miami, and then and running computers over in modems to a big textile company computer in Philadelphia. And so I started it. Now everybody looks at the videos. Some of them slow them down, but it doesn't work because if you slow down the regular video, the legs, we try to see if the legs are straight or if they're all crumpled when they take all the weight. You can't see it. It's all blurry. You have to take much faster. Normal video is like 34 pictures a second. I take up to 500 pictures a second. So when I stop it, it's crystal clear. And I can see, for example, a lot of horses, it's obvious they're going to chip their knees and it's going to hurt to run the way they do it. They bend the knee the wrong direction whenever the full weight's on it at that velocity. And the forces are huge. Think about it. Force equals mass times velocity squared. So the mass is 1,000 pounds and the velocity is going to be 55, 60 feet per second. So do the math. That's a lot. That's tons, 8 tons or more, even if everything goes right, on these thin legs with a hoof no bigger than your hand. And if they don't do it right, man, they just break the leg off.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And I could have told them, but they don't want to hear it, And if I started telling everybody whose horses were going to break down, then I'd be banned from the auctions. Yeah. So I just keep my mouth shut and do my job.
But you also get to pick the right horses. It makes a big deal. Let me ask you about syndication or like co-investing. If there's people out there that maybe want to partner up, maybe they don't want to spend the millions alone, is there a way to do that? Yeah, we do that. In fact, that's now all the rage. They finally figured out that they need more numbers of horses, these top players. And most of the big money being spent is all the top players of that. It's being instead of being so fragmented, they're all working together. So you'll see the owner of the horse left names of 4 big stables. In the Kentucky Derby, you're going to see that. And often at the auctions, it's like 4 big names as the buyer. And so, yeah, they're pulling them together, but that's easy enough. I graduated from Harvard Law School. I still have my lawyer's license. I know how to put together a limited liability partnership. No, it's not a big deal. And I'm not going to steal their money, after 45 years. You're going to teach them how to make it with the horses. That's how it's going to work. Where's the future of racehorse investing heading? Are we going to see like a tech-driven gold rush, or is this just kind of unique? No, the tech is still, there's a lot. Most of the new tech craze is to working on pedigree. And we developed DNA now. We finally, after 20 years or 10 years of working on it, I actually am starting to look at the DNA of the horses and have successful tools there. But that's not what they're doing. Most of the tech is focused on trying to analyze pedigree data, which is a lousy database. But the industry is, as I say, is consolidating. There'll be fewer racetracks. The big stables will be pools of 3 or 4 wealthy or more guys. And that's where it's headed. It wasn't that 10 years ago, but it is now. For a lot of reasons. Racing, was the only game in town for gambling so long ago. Now it's just a small piece of the gaming space, but it's
one of the classiest. Intellectually, it's very complex. It's a lot of fun. Socially, it's a whole lot better than pulling the the handle at the casino. So it's although it's become a small piece of the gaming space now, it's an elite space in the gaming space, and so it's still going to have its fans.
Oh, it definitely does. It definitely will. It will continue as things go forward. There's something I don't know, man. Like, it's just human to be able to see these massive beasts, and riding down the track and feel the stomping. I mean, it's something that human nature's, I don't think, ever going to really go away from. So if people want to, no,
they are powerful.
They are very powerful animals. Jeffrey, if someone out there is interested in doing something like this, where can they find out more information? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, my website's going along behind under there, and I answer my phone. I think my phone number's on the website. It's 610-745-2370. 610-745-2370. It's my cell. I answer it.
What does EQB stand for? EQB.FYI is your website.
Well, the entire name of the company is actually Equine Biomechanics and Exercise Physiology Inc., trading as EQB Inc. But I think it was EQB as Equine Biometrics. The Q was small. It's supposed to kind of look like a chemical formula.
Okay. Now just figure, if a little explanation makes people remember it. EQB.FYI is the website. Yeah. All right. Well, Jeffrey, thank you very much for taking time to talk to us today. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I've never been in the equestrian field, but this is a different opportunity. This is one of those times where you can plant your money in something that plants its feet and gets going and the racehorses here. So if you're interested, EQB.FYI is the website. Go over there, hit Jeffrey up. He answers his phone. Jeffrey, one more time. What was that phone number?
610-745-2370. But the contact stuff's on our website, and we were happy to share information and to talk to you about what we do and how we do it. Come visit us. Come visit the farm. See some baby horses. It's fun. We're in Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania, steeplechase country.
That's it. All right, Jeffrey. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace, and we're out.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz